Hey everybody, Seth here, coming to you from the middle of nowhere. This past weekend, AMD held an event where they released more details about their high-end desktop processor, Threadripper. They also let loose information on their Radeon Vega GPUs. So come with me as we discuss all the tantalizing details of these highly anticipated products. The Ryzen Threadripper CPU has a TR4 socket type. Its insertion type is LGA, so the pins will be on the motherboard as opposed to being on the CPU, as with the Ryzen 7, 5, and 3 CPUs. The chipset it uses is the X399. The Threadripper CPU supports quad-channel DDR4 memory and also supports ECC modules. All Threadripper CPUs, regardless of core count, support up to 64 PCI lanes, which is amazing. So enough about that. What about what's in the box? The packaging looks amazing, but we're more concerned with what's on the inside. Besides the CPU, you also get an Asetek cooling bracket. This bracket is compatible with all Asetek AIO liquid coolers, such as NZXT's Kraken line or Corsair's H line. The lineup, it consists of 3 processors that we know of. There's a few that have been rumored, but we're only going to concern ourselves with those that have been announced. First off, starting with the high end, we have the 1950X. It's a 16-core, 32-thread processor, comes in at 3.4 GHz and has a boost speed of 4.0 GHz. Its price is ready to move at $999 USD. Well, I don't know if it's ready to move, but it's a good price for a 16-core processor as compared to Intel's. Next up, we have the 1920X. It's our 12-core, 24-thread processor, comes in at 3.5 GHz with a 4 GHz boost as well. Its price is $799 USD. Finally, we have the previously undisclosed Threadripper processor. That's 8 cores and 16 threads. Its clock speed comes in at 3.8 GHz with a boost speed also of 4.0 GHz. Its price, just a little bit more than the Ryzen 7 1800X, is $549 USD. So, if you're in the mood for a brand new machine and you haven't committed to a Ryzen 7 yet, but you were thinking about the 1800X, consider the 1900X instead. For a little bit more, you're going to get more PCI lanes and DDR4 quad-channel support. Speaking of support, next up we have our motherboards. All the usual suspects will be playing with Threadripper. We have motherboards coming in the line from Gigabyte, Asus, ASRock, and MSI. And as with everything 2017, expect plenty of RGB. Well, Threadripper is a beastly CPU, and you can't have a beastly CPU without a beastly cooling solution. So there's going to be many air and AIO liquid coolers ready out of the gate from all, again, usual suspects. Do note that existing Asetek AIO liquid coolers do cover the 4 dies under the CPU heat spreader. So if you already have an AIO liquid cooler, don't worry about purchasing a new one. Finally, we have Ryzen Threadripper's release dates. For the 16 and 12 core CPUs, August 10th will be your date of purchase, and for the 8 core, you'll have to wait a little bit longer to the end of the month at August 31st. However, as of today, July 31st, you can pre-order your CPU. Moving on from Ryzen Threadripper CPU to Radeon Vega. AMD announced 2 flavors of their Vega GPU, the Vega 56 and the Vega 64. The numbers relate to the compute units for each processor. Starting with the 56, as already stated, it has 56 compute units. Its base clock speed is 1156 MHz. It has a boost clock speed of 1471 MHz. It contains 3584 stream processors and 256 texture units. Its memory capacity is 8 GB of HBM2, and its memory bus is 2048 bits. It can perform up to 10.5 teraflops, and its TDP is 250 watts. The asking price for the Vega 56 is $399 USD. Moving on to Vega 64. Now, you'll see here that we have 2 sets of numbers. There will be 2 versions of Vega 64, the air-cooled and the liquid-cooled. The difference between the two are the base and boost clock speeds. Everything else is the same. So with the Vega 64, we have, again, 64 compute units. The base clock speed for the liquid-cooled is 1406 MHz, while the air-cooled will be 1247 MHz. The boost clock speed for the liquid-cooled is 1677 MHz, while the air-cooled will have a boost clock speed of 1546 MHz. Also, if you plan on custom liquid cooling this GPU, here's some numbers you can probably try and shoot for. The stream processors will be the same for both at 4096, as are the texture units, which will be 256, the same as the Vega 56. The memory capacity, also the same, is 8 GB of HBM2 memory, and the bus is also the same at 2048 bits. The performance, however, for the liquid-cooled is 13.7 teraflops, while the air-cooled Vega 64 is at 12.7 teraflops. Also, each GPU has a different TDP, with the liquid-cooled coming in at 345 watts and the air-cooled coming at 295 watts. The Radeon Vega 64 is priced to compete with NVIDIA's GTX 1080. The standard edition of the Vega 64 comes in at $499, and the liquid-cooled will be $599. If you opt for the snazzier limited edition of either card, you're looking at $549 for the air-cooled version of Vega 64 and $649 respectively for the liquid-cooled. When looking at the cooler for the Vega GPUs, they are similar to what you've already seen. All contain a plastic shroud with blower-style cooler. However, the Vega 64 liquid and air-cooled versions will come with limited editions that feature an aluminum shroud and a slightly different fan design in terms of, I believe, the size, as shown here. The difference between, again, as stated, between the Vega 64 air and liquid-cooled versions, higher base and boost clock rates, and of course one is liquid-cooled. Performance-wise, Vega will not be a 1080 Ti killer, and AMD knows this. However, it will compete with the 1080 both performance and price-wise. Finally, a piece of advice, get a good PSU. The 750 watts will be required for the air-cooled Vega 64 and 1000 for the liquid-cooled model. And our release date will be August 14th. So get your wallets ready. With the release of Threadripper and Radeon Vega, AMD is poised to take on both Intel and Nvidia in the HEDT CPU and mid to high-end range GPU markets. It's an exciting time in the tech world, and I, for one, am eager to read the reviews on both these products. What about you? Are you looking forward to AMD's August launches? Let me know in the comments down below. Personally, I'm chomping at the bit for a 12-core or 16-core Threadripper CPU, and I'd love a pair of 1080 Ti's. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for joining me in the middle of nowhere. Like the video if you liked it, hit that subscribe button while you're here, and why don't you check out one of my other videos. Follow me on social media, and as always, I'll see you next time in the middle of nowhere.